Have you ever had one of those moments? Perhaps you're an architect like Clara, staring at a blank screen, the cursor blinking with an almost mocking rhythm. The well of creativity has run dry, and a creeping doubt begins to whisper that maybe you've chosen the wrong path, that your passion has faded into a profession. Discouraged, she takes a walk, her eyes tracing the familiar lines of the city. Then she sees it, a beautiful, intricate pattern in a spiderweb of cracks on an old brick wall. She stops, captivated, and takes a photo, feeling a tiny, unexplainable spark. Later that day, while scrolling aimlessly, she stumbles upon an article about a pioneering Japanese architect who championed the philosophy of wabi-sabi, finding beauty in imperfection. The spark brightens. That evening, an email arrives from a potential new client. The subject line reads, "Project Inquiry, a design that breaks the rules." The brief asks for a space that feels organically evolved, not perfectly constructed. For Clara, this cascade of events feels like more than chance. It feels like a message. We usually brush these things off. What a coincidence, we say, and move on. But what if it's more than that? What if these moments are not just random noise, but a meaningful signal from a deeper part of reality? In the architecture of our minds and the hidden patterns of our lives, few concepts are as fascinating and as potentially transformative as synchronicity. Coined by the legendary psychologist Carl Jung, synchronicity is the idea of meaningful coincidence. It's that uncanny timing, that perfect alignment of an inner thought with an outer event that makes you stop and feel like the universe just winked at you. So, what is this phenomenon really? Is it just our brains playing tricks on us? Or is it evidence of a deeper connection to the world? And most importantly, can we learn to understand its language and use it as a tool for our own growth? An ancient intuition, the philosophical roots of synchronicity. The idea that the universe communicates with us through meaningful patterns is not a modern invention. Carl Jung, in his brilliance, didn't create a new philosophy, but rather gave a psychological name to an intuition that has echoed through human consciousness for millennia. To truly grasp synchronicity, we can look to the ancient traditions that saw the world not as a machine of disconnected parts, but as a single, living, breathing entity. The Stoic philosophers of ancient Greece and Rome, for instance, built their worldview on the concept of sympathia. They believed the entire cosmos was a single living organism, infused with a divine intelligence or logos. In this view, everything is interconnected, not by cause and effect, but by a web of mutual sympathy. The Stoic Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Constantly regard the universe as one living being, having one substance and one soul, and observe how all things have reference to one perception, the perception of this one living being." For the Stoics, a synchronicity wouldn't be a random miracle. It would be a natural expression of this cosmic sympathy, a tremor felt in one part of the organism that resonates in another, a thought in the mind of man that finds its echo in the flight of a bird. This idea of a grand, interconnected whole finds a powerful parallel in Eastern philosophy. In Taoism, the concept of the Tao represents the natural, effortless flow of the universe. While synchronicity is an event, the Tao is the underlying current that makes such events possible. The practice of Wu Wei, or effortless action, is about aligning oneself with this current. From this perspective, synchronicities are moments when our personal will and the will of the Tao align perfectly. They are not events we force into being, but moments of grace that occur when we stop struggling and allow ourselves to be carried by the river of what is. It's the moment the answer appears, not because you searched for it, but because you finally stopped searching. Perhaps the most beautiful metaphor for this interconnectedness comes from Mahayana Buddhism, the image of Indra's net. This cosmic net stretches out infinitely in all directions. At every intersection of its threads hangs a single, brilliant jewel. Each jewel is perfectly clear and reflects all the other jewels in the net, and each reflection in turn contains the reflection of all the other jewels, on and on, into infinity. This image tells us that every single part of the universe not only reflects the whole, but also contains the whole. A synchronicity, then, is like catching a glimpse of this truth, a moment where we see the reflection of our inner world in the jewel of an outer event and realize they were never truly separate. Jung himself was deeply influenced by these ancient ideas, particularly through his study of alchemy. The alchemists of old were not just trying to turn lead into gold. Their work was a complex metaphor for psychological and spiritual transformation. Their guiding principle, as above, so below, is the philosophical heart of synchronicity. It posits that the patterns of the macrocosm, the universe, the heavens, are mirrored in the microcosm, the human psyche, the earth. A synchronistic event is a literal manifestation of this principle, a moment where the above of our inner world aligns perfectly with the below of our outer world, revealing the hidden unity of all things. By understanding these deep roots, we see that Jung's concept is not an isolated psychological curiosity. It is a modern articulation of an ancient cross-cultural wisdom that invites us to see our lives not as a series of random accidents, but as a meaningful dialogue with a deeply connected and intelligent universe. The architecture of meaning, deconstructing the phenomenon. To begin, it's important to get our definition straight. Synchronicity isn't the same as simple coincidence. Seeing a coworker wearing the same shirt is a coincidence. Winning the lottery after dreaming about it might feel significant, but it's still in the realm of chance. Synchronicity is different. It's a bridge between your inner world and the outer world. It's the intersection of a mental state, a thought, a dream, a question, and an external event that seems inexplicably but meaningfully linked to it. The classic story comes from Carl Jung himself. He was treating a woman who was intensely rational, making it difficult for her to break through her intellectual defenses. One day, she was describing a powerful dream she'd had about being given a golden scarab, a type of beetle. This was significant because in ancient Egyptian mythology, the scarab is a potent symbol of rebirth and transformation. As she was telling him this, Jung heard a gentle tapping at the window. He turned, opened it, and caught an insect that had flown in. He walked back to his patient and opened his hand. "Here," he said, "is your scarab." In his hand was a scarab-like beetle, a Cetonia aurata, which was unusually trying to get into a dark room at that time of day. The sheer impossibility of this event, combined with its profound symbolic weight, shattered the woman's rigid rationalism and opened her up to the therapeutic process. That is synchronicity in its purest form. The dream didn't cause the beetle to appear, and the beetle wasn't a psychic prediction. The two events were linked only by meaning, and that meaning was transformative. So, what's going on here? If we start with the most grounded scientific explanation, we find our brains have something called the reticular activating system, or RAS. Think of it as a bouncer for your conscious mind. It filters the billions of bits of data bombarding you every second and only lets in what's important to you. When you decide you want to buy a blue car, you suddenly start seeing blue cars everywhere. There aren't more blue cars on the road. Your RAS is just programmed to notice them. This, combined with confirmation bias, explains how we might notice connections. If you're worried about a problem, your brain is actively scanning the environment for anything related to it. But that doesn't fully explain the profound sense of timing and meaning, does it? It doesn't explain the statistical improbability of the beetle at the window, nor the powerful, almost spiritual feeling that accompanies true synchronicity. This feeling is what truly separates a meaningful coincidence from a random one. Jung, borrowing from the theologian Rudolf Otto, called this the numinous experience. The numinous is a feeling of awe, of being in the presence of something wholly other, something divine and mysterious. It's the chill down your spine, the sudden intake of breath, the overwhelming sense that you have just touched upon a hidden order of reality. It is this emotional and spiritual charge that signals to our psyche, pay attention, this is not ordinary. Without the numinous quality, the story of the scarab is just a strange anecdote. With it, it becomes a moment of profound revelation. This is where Carl Jung takes us deeper. He proposed that we are all connected through what he called the collective unconscious. Imagine our individual conscious minds are like little islands. On the surface, we look separate. But if you go deep beneath the water, you'll find that all these islands are connected by the same ocean floor. That ocean floor is the collective unconscious, a shared reservoir of humanity's memories, experiences, and, most importantly, its archetypes, archetypes are not just symbols. They are universal, primordial patterns of energy and consciousness. They are the blueprints for our most fundamental human experiences. When a synchronicity occurs, it's often because an archetype has been activated in your life and it's manifesting both internally and externally. Let's explore a few of these powerful patterns. The mentor and the hero's journey. As we've touched on, when you are at a crossroads, a synchronicity might manifest the mentor archetype. You, coincidentally, meet someone who gives you the exact advice you need. This often happens as part of the hero's journey, where an unexpected event, the call to adventure, propels you out of your comfort zone and onto a path of growth. The anima and animus. Jung proposed that within the male psyche exists an unconscious feminine archetype, the anima, and within the female psyche, an unconscious masculine archetype, the animus. We often project these inner figures onto the people we are attracted to. Synchronicity plays a fascinating role here. Consider Leo, a pragmatic and analytical man who finds himself repeatedly drawn to free-spirited, artistic, and emotionally expressive women. A series of synchronicities. He, coincidentally, finds a lost paintbrush on his morning commute. He keeps hearing a particular bohemian folk song. He meets a woman who perfectly embodies these qualities at a gallery he felt inexplicably drawn to. Might seem to be pointing him toward his perfect partner. But the deeper message is often about his own soul. The synchronicity is highlighting his anima, urging him not just to find these qualities in another, but to cultivate his own repressed creativity, intuition, and emotional life. The outer relationship becomes a mirror for the inner work of integration. The trickster. Not all synchronicities are gentle guides. Some arrive in the form of the trickster archetype, bringing chaos, disruption, and what appears to be bad luck. The trickster is a boundary crosser, a sacred fool who upends our carefully laid plans to reveal a deeper truth. Imagine Sarah, a meticulous manager who has spent weeks preparing a career-defining presentation. On the big day, the trickster arrives. Her laptop crashes, the USB drive with the backup is corrupted, and the venue's projector malfunctions. It's a catastrophe. But, forced to abandon her script and her slides, she speaks from the heart. She connects with the audience on a raw, human level, sharing her passion with an authenticity she could never have planned. She gets a standing ovation. The disaster was actually a synchronistic intervention, a chaotic grace that forced her to break free from her rigid control and access a more powerful, genuine part of herself. By understanding these archetypes, we begin to see that synchronicities are not just random winks from the universe. They are highly specific, psychologically potent events designed to bring our attention to the exact inner work we need to do on our journey to becoming whole. Learning the language of the universe. If the universe is sending us messages, it helps to understand the language it speaks. Synchronicity often communicates through a few key channels, each with its own unique texture. One is numbers. You've probably heard of people seeing 1111 everywhere. This is a classic example. You glance at the clock at 11:11, then your receipt at the store is $11.11. Whether you believe in angel numbers or not, this repetition is a powerful nudge from the psyche to pay attention to what you were thinking in that exact moment. It's a call to mindfulness. Another channel is animals and nature. Repeatedly encountering a specific animal can be a potent synchronicity. A butterfly landing on you when you're contemplating a major life change symbolizes transformation. Seeing images of an owl when you're seeking wisdom taps into the archetypal symbol of knowledge. These aren't arbitrary signs. They are ancient symbols our deep minds understand intuitively. The universe also speaks through words and text. This is one of the most common forms, like when a book falls off a shelf, open to a page that gives you the answer to a problem you're wrestling with. You might overhear a snippet of conversation that feels like it was meant for you. Billboards, song lyrics, headlines, the messages are everywhere if your receiver is turned on. Music acts as another powerful messenger. A song you haven't heard in a decade suddenly plays on the radio, and its lyrics perfectly capture your current situation. This is the universe giving your life a soundtrack, and it's worth listening to the words. A deeper language still is that of dreams. Often, a synchronicity in waking life will act as a powerful confirmation or an exclamation point to a message from a dream. You dream of a long-lost key, and the next day, you find an old, ornate key on the sidewalk. The dream presented the symbol. The waking world provided the material confirmation, creating an undeniable link between your inner and outer realities. Finally, there is the language of the body. Our modern culture often dismisses somatic intelligence, but the body is a finely tuned instrument for perceiving reality. That sudden chill down your spine, that unexplainable gut feeling, that wave of peace that washes over you. These physical sensations are often the internal component of a synchronistic event. They are the body's way of saying, "Pay attention, this is important." The key isn't the event itself, but the repetition, the uncanny timing, and the felt sense of significance that gives it personal meaning. New dimensions: collective and shadow synchronicity. While we often think of synchronicity as a personal dialogue, its scope can be far broader and its nature far more complex. To truly understand this phenomenon, we must look beyond our individual lives and be willing to confront its more challenging and shadowy aspects. Collective synchronicity, a message for the world. Synchronicity doesn't just happen to individuals. It can manifest on a massive societal scale. This is collective synchronicity, where the collective unconscious seems to be sending a message not just to one person, but to an entire culture or even to humanity itself. These are moments when a particular idea, symbol, or concern seems to erupt into the global consciousness simultaneously, as if a silent alarm has gone off. The controversial but powerful metaphor for this is the 100th monkey effect. The story goes that scientists on an island taught a few monkeys to wash sweet potatoes. This behavior spread slowly through the troop, but when a critical mass, a hypothetical 100th monkey, learned the skill, the behavior allegedly jumped across the sea to monkey populations on other islands, who had no physical contact with the original group. Whether scientifically accurate or not, the story illustrates a profound idea. When a new consciousness reaches a certain tipping point, it can enter the collective field and become accessible to all. Are we living through a period of collective synchronicity right now? Look around. The simultaneous global awakening to climate change, the widespread and sudden conversation around mental health and well-being, the dual sense of awe and anxiety surrounding the explosion of artificial intelligence, these are not isolated trends. They are powerful, synchronized currents in the human psyche. It is as if the collective unconscious is grappling with its biggest questions. How do we heal our relationship with the planet? How do we heal our relationship with ourselves? And what does it mean to be human in an age of intelligent machines? These are not just news headlines. They are the archetypal dramas of our time, playing out on a global stage. The shadow of synchronicity, caution and nuance. Just as every individual has a shadow, so does the concept of synchronicity itself. To engage with it wisely, we must be aware of its potential pitfalls and the ways our own minds can lead us astray. It is not a path of constant bliss and easy answers. It requires discernment and psychological honesty. First, we must distinguish synchronicity from apophenia, which is the natural human tendency to see meaningful patterns in random noise. Our brains are pattern-matching machines. Seeing faces in the clouds or finding familiar shapes in wood grain is apophenia. The key difference lies in that numinous quality we discussed. Apophenia is a cognitive quirk. Synchronicity is a transformative experience. Apophenia is interesting. That cloud looks like a rabbit. Synchronicity is arresting. That white rabbit just ran past me right as I was thinking about Alice in Wonderland and my fear of the unknown. What does this mean? One is a passing observation. The other feels like a personal message charged with meaning and emotion. Second, we must be wary of spiritual bypassing. This is the subtle but dangerous act of using spiritual ideas to avoid dealing with difficult human emotions and responsibilities. Synchronicity can easily be co-opted for this purpose. For example, a person might abruptly end a long-term relationship, causing great pain, and justify it by saying, "I saw a sign from the universe that we weren't meant to be." This bypasses the hard, messy work of communication, emotional accountability, and facing one's own fears of commitment or conflict. It uses a spiritual concept as a shield to avoid psychological work. True synchronicity doesn't offer an escape from life. It invites us to engage with it more deeply. Finally, we must grapple with negative or challenging synchronicities. What does it mean when the universe seems to be confirming our deepest fears? Imagine someone terrified of public speaking who, in the week leading up to a presentation, coincidentally sees 3 different videos of public speaking fails online. Is the universe telling them they are doomed to fail? Almost certainly not. It's more likely that the psyche is using the principle of like attracts like to mirror the intensity of their inner state. The message isn't, "You will fail." The message is, "Your fear of failure is so powerful right now that it is coloring your entire reality. This fear is the thing that needs your attention." The synchronicity isn't a prediction of the future, it's a diagnosis of the present. It's an invitation to turn inward and address the fear itself, which is the real obstacle, rather than projecting that fear onto the external event. Synchronicity as a transformative tool. This is where it gets really interesting. Synchronicity isn't just a cool party trick. Jung believed it serves a profound purpose, to guide us on our journey of individuation. That's his term for the lifelong process of becoming our most whole, authentic selves. Not a perfect self, but a complete self. And one of the most critical parts of that journey is confronting our shadow. The shadow is everything we've disowned about ourselves and pushed into our unconscious: our anger, our envy, our fears, our unacceptable desires. We often don't see our own shadow. Instead, we project it onto others. The person at work you can't stand because they are arrogant? You might be projecting your own unacknowledged arrogance. Synchronicity can act as a powerful, if sometimes uncomfortable, mirror. Consider the story of Robert, a retired executive who prided himself on his work ethic and discipline. He despised what he saw as laziness in others. After a health scare, his doctor ordered him to completely rest. For Robert, this was a prison sentence. One day in the park, he saw a young man just lying on the grass, sleeping in the sun, and he felt a surge of disgust. A few days later, his daughter visited and gave him a gift, a hammock. "So you can finally learn to relax, Dad," she said. The sleeping man, the doctor's orders, the hammock, this wasn't a coincidence. It was a message. Robert was being forced to confront his shadow, his own deep, repressed need for rest and laziness. By judging it so harshly in others, he was denying a vital part of himself. The synchronicity wasn't telling him to get a new job. It was telling him to heal his relationship with himself. Sometimes these patterns can even illuminate and help heal generational trauma. A woman who finds herself repeating a pattern of failed relationships might coincidentally discover a box of her grandmother's old letters, only to find that her grandmother suffered the exact same heartbreaks. This synchronicity is a key. It reframes her personal struggle as a family pattern, giving her the awareness and the opportunity to be the one who finally breaks the cycle. The Art of Listening, a practical guide to cultivating awareness. So, how do we get more of this magic in our lives? You don't make synchronicity happen, but you can become a more sensitive receiver. Cultivating this awareness is an art, a practice of deep listening, not just with your ears, but with your whole being. Let's explore some practical, in-depth methods to tune your inner antenna. The foundation, radical presence. You can't see the signs if you're not looking. In our age of distraction, our minds are constantly elsewhere, replaying the past, rehearsing the future, or lost in the digital scroll. Synchronicity happens in the now. The first and most crucial practice is to cultivate radical presence. This goes beyond just being mindful. It's about fighting the modern world's signal versus noise problem. The universe might be sending a clear signal, but if your mind is filled with the static of 1,000 worries and notifications, you'll miss it. A simple, powerful exercise is the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding technique. Wherever you are, pause. Name 5 things you can see. Then 4 things you can physically feel. The chair against your back, your feet on the floor, the texture of your clothes. Then 3 things you can hear. Then 2 things you can smell. And finally, 1 thing you can taste. This simple act pulls your awareness out of the chaotic thought stream and anchors it firmly in your present sensory reality. Practicing this several times a day trains your brain to pay attention to the world outside your head, making you far more likely to notice when that world is trying to get your attention. The field notes, the Synchronicity Journal. This is the single most transformative practice you can adopt. When a meaningful coincidence happens, don't just tell a friend about it. Honor it by writing it down. This act does two things. It signals to your unconscious that you are taking its messages seriously, which often encourages more to come, and it allows you to see patterns over time that would otherwise be invisible. Go beyond just noting the event. Use a structured approach for each entry. The inner state. What was the precise thought, feeling, or question in my mind right before the event? Be specific. Not just, I was feeling sad, but I was feeling a deep sense of loneliness and wondering if I'd ever find my tribe. The outer event. Describe exactly what happened. A song I hadn't heard since college, which was our song with my old group of friends, started playing in the cafe. The numinous jolt. Describe the physical and emotional sensation. I felt a full-body chill. It wasn't just surprise. It was a feeling of being seen, a warmth that spread through my chest. I almost started to cry. The symbolic bridge. If this were a symbol in a dream or a story, what would it represent? The song represents connection, belonging, and a time when I felt deeply understood. The message feels like a reassurance that that feeling isn't lost forever. The invitation. Is there an invitation to action here? It doesn't have to be monumental. The invitation might be to simply reach out to one of those old friends. Let's take an example. A man named David is feeling stuck and uninspired in his corporate job. He writes in his journal, "Inner state. I was sitting at my desk feeling like a cog in a machine, and I asked a silent question. Is there more to life than this?" Outer event. Right then, a gust of wind blew my window open, and a single, bright red maple leaf landed on my keyboard. Numinous jolt. It felt surreal. Time seemed to slow down. The color was so vibrant against the gray of my office. It felt like a piece of the wild, living world had just broken in. Symbolic bridge. The leaf represents nature, change, autumn, and a world outside these four walls. It's a symbol of life and vitality. Invitation. The invitation feels like it's simply to go for a walk in the park after work, to reconnect with nature. This small act, born from a synchronicity and honored in a journal, could be the first step on a completely new path. The dialogue, active imagination, and bibliomancy. Sometimes, we need to be more proactive in our dialogue with the unconscious. Jung's technique of active imagination is a powerful way to do this. It is a form of conscious waking meditation where you engage directly with the figures of your inner world. 1. Find a quiet space and relax. Close your eyes and focus on your breath. 2. Invite an image. Bring to mind a figure or symbol from a recent dream or a powerful synchronicity. Perhaps it's the owl you keep seeing, or the trickster figure from a frustrating experience. 3. Engage in dialogue. Ask it a question. Why are you here? What do you represent? What do you want me to know? Then, and this is the crucial part, listen. Allow the answer to come spontaneously, without censorship from your rational mind. It might be in words, images, or feelings. You can speak back, ask for clarification. 4. Record the experience. When you feel the dialogue is complete, thank the figure and gently return to full awareness. Immediately write down everything that happened, just as you would a dream. A more playful but equally profound practice is bibliomancy, or divination with books. It's a way of using a random external text as a mirror for your inner state. 1. Hold a question in your mind. Make it an open-ended question, like, what do I need to be aware of right now? 2. Choose a book. It can be a book of poetry, a spiritual text, a novel, whatever feels right. 3. Open to a random page. Without looking, let the book fall open or choose a page number. 4. Let your eyes land. Let your gaze fall naturally onto the page and read the first sentence or paragraph you see. Don't take the words literally as a prediction. Instead, ask yourself, how does this passage resonate with my question? What feelings or ideas does it evoke in me? You are using the text as a symbolic Rorschach test, and the meaning you find is a reflection of your own inner wisdom. The embodiment, ritual and somatic trust. Finally, to truly integrate the experience of synchronicity, we must bring it into the physical world and learn to trust our body's wisdom. When a particularly powerful synchronicity occurs, create a small ritual to honor it. This gives the numinous experience a physical anchor and signals its importance to your psyche. If you found a unique feather on a walk that felt significant, Don't just toss it in a drawer. Place it on your desk or a small altar. Light a candle and spend a few moments reflecting on the message it brought you. Ritual turns a fleeting moment into a lasting resource of meaning. And above all, learn to trust your gut. Our bodies hold a wisdom that predates language. That feeling of expansion and rightness in your chest when considering a path, or that feeling of contraction and dread, these are not random emotions. They are complex, data-rich signals from your nervous system. When a synchronicity happens, notice your body's immediate reaction. Does it make you feel more expansive, more alive, more you? Or does it make you feel smaller and more anxious? Your body often knows the meaning of a message long before your conscious mind can articulate it. Trusting that somatic wisdom is perhaps the most advanced form of listening there is. Journeys in meaning, case studies, and the wisdom of discernment theory and practice are essential, but the true power of synchronicity comes alive in the stories of our lives. To see how these threads weave together, let's explore some detailed case studies. These are not just anecdotes, but portraits of transformation, illustrating how synchronicity guides us through life's most pivotal chapters. Following these stories, we will dive even deeper into the crucial art of discernment, learning to navigate the subtle and sometimes shadowy waters of meaningful coincidence. Case Study 1. The Entrepreneur's Calling. Let's consider Michael, a successful lawyer in his late 30s. By all external measures, he was thriving. He had a prestigious job, a high salary, and the respect of his peers. Internally, however, he felt a profound emptiness. His work, once challenging, now felt like a gilded cage, devoid of passion and purpose. He found himself daydreaming about his college days, when he spent his weekends building rustic furniture from reclaimed wood in his grandfather's workshop. That felt like a different lifetime, an impossible dream. He felt trapped, and his inner question was a constant, dull ache. Is this all there is? The first synchronicity was subtle. While stuck in traffic, he glanced at a passing truck. On its side was a logo for a lumber company with the slogan, "Build something that lasts." The phrase stuck with him, feeling strangely personal. A week later, a law conference took him to a small town he'd never visited. With a free afternoon, he wandered into an old bookstore. As he ran his hand along a dusty shelf, a single book fell to the floor. It was a biography of a master woodworker, George Nakashima. He bought it and read it cover to cover that night, feeling a forgotten passion stir within him. The trickster archetype then made its appearance. Back at work, a major case he had been meticulously preparing for months fell apart due to a bizarre legal technicality completely out of his control. This was a huge professional setback, a disaster. His superiors were disappointed, and Michael felt humiliated. Yet, in the quiet aftermath of the failure, he felt not just despair, but a strange sense of relief. The collapse of the case had created an unexpected space in his life, a forced pause. During this lull, he decided to clean out his garage. In a forgotten corner, under a dusty tarp, he found his grandfather's old toolbox. As he opened the rusty latches, the smell of sawdust and oil filled the air, and the memories came flooding back. It felt like unearthing a part of his own soul. This was the turning point. He started spending his evenings and weekends in the garage, just tinkering. He built a small table, then a bookshelf. The joy he felt was more real than any courtroom victory. The final piece of the puzzle was a mentor. He learned of a retiring master craftsman in a nearby town who was looking to sell his workshop. On a whim, Michael drove out to see it. The craftsman, an old man named Samuel, saw the passion in Michael's eyes. He didn't just want to sell his tools, he wanted to pass on his legacy. They talked for hours. Samuel shared stories, techniques, and wisdom. By the end of the day, he made Michael an offer. He would sell him the workshop and mentor him for the first year at a price Michael could actually afford. Looking back, Michael could see the narrative. The slogan on the truck was the initial whisper. The book was the spark of inspiration. The disastrous case was the trickster clearing the path, creating the necessary chaos for change. The toolbox was the rediscovery of his own buried identity. And Samuel was the mentor, arriving at the perfect moment to guide him across the threshold. Michael took the leap. He left the law firm, took over the workshop, and started a new life building furniture. He was no longer just successful, he was fulfilled. Case Study 2. The ancestors' echo synchronicity also plays a profound role in healing, often by revealing patterns that stretch back through generations. Consider the story of Elena, a woman in her 40s who struggled with a deep-seated feeling of not belonging. Despite having friends and a loving partner, she carried a persistent, inexplicable sadness and a fear of being abandoned. She felt like an outsider in her own life. Her journey began with a dream. She dreamt she was walking through an old, unfamiliar house. In one room, she saw a beautiful hand-carved wooden bird sitting on a windowsill, but one of its wings was broken. She woke up with a powerful sense of grief for the broken bird. The next day, while visiting her mother, she noticed a small, framed photograph on a bookshelf she'd never paid attention to before. It was a black and white photo of a woman she didn't recognize. "Who is this?" she asked. Her mother replied, "That's your great-grandmother, Sophia. She passed away long before you were born." A few weeks later, Elena was helping her mother clean out the attic. In an old trunk tucked beneath layers of quilts was a small, leather-bound diary. It was Sophia's. Elena felt a numinous chill as she opened it. The diary was filled with beautiful prose and poetry, but it also told a story of profound loneliness. Sophia had been an immigrant, leaving her homeland and family behind for a new country where she always felt like a stranger. She wrote of her love for birdwatching, a passion that connected her to her lost home, and described in heartbreaking detail her feeling of being a bird with a broken wing, unable to truly fly or return home. The synchronicity was staggering. The dream of the broken bird, the coincidental discovery of the photograph, and the unearthing of the diary all converged to tell one story. Elena realized that the sadness and feeling of not belonging that she carried were not just hers. They were an echo, a piece of emotional DNA passed down from her great-grandmother. This was a classic case of healing generational trauma. The awareness was transformative. Elena began to see her sadness not as a personal failing, but as an ancestral wound she was being invited to heal. She started learning about her great-grandmother's culture, cooking her recipes, and even began birdwatching herself. In doing so, she was not only connecting with her roots, but also consciously healing the broken wing within her own psyche. The feeling of being an outsider began to fade, replaced by a deep sense of connection to a lineage she now understood. The synchronicity didn't magically erase the pain, but it gave it a name, a history, and a path toward integration. The wisdom of discernment, navigating the shadow. As these stories show, engaging with synchronicity is a powerful practice. However, just as every individual has a shadow, so does this phenomenon. To navigate these waters wisely, we must cultivate a keen sense of discernment and be aware of the ways our own minds can lead us astray. First, we must learn to distinguish true synchronicity from apophenia, the natural human tendency to see meaningful patterns in random noise. Our brains are hardwired for this. It's a survival mechanism. But it can also lead us to assign meaning where there is none. The key difference, as we've discussed, lies in that numinous quality and the connection to a significant inner process. Apophenia is a cognitive quirk. Synchronicity is a transformative experience. To differentiate, ask yourself, did this event carry a significant emotional charge? Did it feel like it was speaking directly to a deep question or struggle I'm currently facing? Did it lead to a new insight or an invitation to grow? If the answer to these is no, it might just be a random coincidence. Second, we must be vigilant against spiritual bypassing. This is the subtle but dangerous act of using spiritual ideas to avoid dealing with difficult human emotions and responsibilities. Synchronicity can easily be misused in this way. A person might justify ghosting a friend by saying, "I saw a sign that the friendship was over," instead of having the difficult but necessary conversation. This uses a spiritual concept as an escape hatch from emotional maturity. True synchronicity doesn't offer an escape from life's complexities. It invites us to engage with them more deeply and honestly. Third, we must understand how the ego can co-opt synchronicity. The ego loves to feel special, chosen, and in on a secret. When we start noticing synchronicities, the ego can latch onto them as proof of our spiritual importance. We can become synchronicity junkies, constantly looking for the next hit of cosmic validation. This shifts the focus from genuine inner work to egoic self-aggrandizement. The antidote is humility. See these events not as a reward or a sign of your specialness, but as a grace, a mystery, and a service to the soul's quiet journey of becoming whole. Finally, we must learn to navigate synchronistic droughts. What does it mean when the signs and meaningful coincidences seem to dry up? The ego might interpret this as a sign that we've done something wrong or have been abandoned by the universe. A wiser perspective sees these fallow periods as essential parts of the cycle. They are often times for integration, when the soul needs quiet to process the lessons from a previous phase of synchronistic activity. A drought isn't a punishment. It's an invitation to trust the inner work you've already done and to walk by faith, not just by sight. The story the universe is telling. In the end, synchronicity is far more than just chance. It's a glimpse into the hidden architecture of reality, a bridge between your mind and the universe. It's a guide, a healer, and a mirror on the profound journey of becoming who you truly are. Let's return to Clara, our architect. The cracked wall, the article on Wabi Sabi, the client email, she could have dismissed them. Instead, she saw them as a narrative. She accepted the project and poured her newfound philosophy into it, creating a building celebrated for its raw, honest beauty. The synchronicity didn't just give her a job, it reconnected her with her authentic creative voice. It reminded her who she was. The next time a meaningful coincidence happens, don't just brush it off. Pause, take a breath, and ask yourself, what is this trying to tell me? What story is the universe trying to tell through me? Here is an invitation. For the next 30 days, become a symbol hunter in your own life. Keep a journal. At the end of the month, read it not as a list of isolated events, but as a chapter in a story. Look for the recurring themes, the underlying narrative. You might be surprised by the answer. You might discover the magnificent, meaningful story that has been waiting for you all along.